was telling you before we hopped on, I was at the gym today and I had FS1 on the television, and all of a sudden I look up and I see this beautiful man next to Colin Cowherd, and it's no other than Tom Brady, who looked tanner than you, Colin. He looked fantastic. He's a good-looking guy.
He is. He is. I said during the interview, try to limit your appearances on a TV screen next to Tom Brady. He and Jesse Palmer make even a moderately, redeemable guy, and I think moderately redeemable is where I classify. You look like you're out baling hay. You've been in a ditch for 6 hours next to Brady.
You did a thing a long time ago on the old place. When you walked in the hallways and you crossed Jesse Palmer, you just realized it wasn't a fair game for all of us, right? I mean, Jesse's a good-looking guy.
I would take an exit. I just jump into an office. I didn't want to be seen in the same space. So, but Brady was in New York doing something with his son. And, I mean, he's, I tried to butter. I had a joke to start because I know, there's Tom on that podcast kind of has control of it. Yeah. So I wanted to lighten up the mood with a Mike Vrabel thought, because I know he's close with Vrabel. And it got Tom in a good mood, and we were off and rolling for about 12, 15 minutes. But, it was very gracious. I've interviewed almost, I think, everybody, Tiger Woods, Barack Obama, Trump, every coach, anybody I've wanted. He was one of the last ones. So it was great.
Well, I got two things on it. To me, one thing that stood out, you asked him a very direct question. Is there a 1% chance of you coming back? And the thing I noticed, and I understand it's, this game is meant to it's his life, it's his identity. He refused to use the word retirement. And he kind of beat around the bush, but he did not say, it's not like he easily could have said, Colin, under no chance, I'm taking this year off, next year be at Fox, but I am not coming back under any circumstances. He kind of went the Belichickian, worked around it. What would your take on that?
Well, now his business is on the East Coast, right? So, I mean, Tom will be able to throw the football. He set 2 NFL records this year. So Tom will be able to throw the football in 10 years from now. As Drew Bledsoe always says, you don't lose the arm, you lose the legs, you lose the desire. So if Tom stays in shape, I don't doubt. And let's say the Niner thing just implodes totally and they call him in August and say, can you play October 1st? I think you take the phone call. The Niners one, even though it's cross country, the roster is so good. There's part of me that thinks, how would he not take the call? Because it's not a quarterback demanding job. It's a quarterback friendly job. Now, when I watched Brady at the beach, I thought it was over. And his answer today, though he didn't give a definitive, I still think it's over. But let's say I retired and I meant it. What if a year later, like the greatest job ever is offered, I'd probably pick the phone up.
Yeah.
It's like Tom looks great, still has a great arm, just was in an offense that completely, utterly depended on him and got them to win the division. So I think he's done. But just because you're done doesn't mean, he's not only a football player, he's an entrepreneur. Yeah. Entrepreneurs always pick the phone up.
Obviously I lived in Northern California a long time, and you're a fan of your team, but as you grow older, whether you play or whether you just do different things, that separates. But there is an element of, one, the guy loves to win and the team is set up to win. And two, like I lost my dad a couple years ago, and you've lost parents. There is a unique part as your parents age, if you do have the opportunity to do something special with them. So I'd be shocked if not just Kyle Shanahan, but I bet Josh McDaniels as well. Those two teams, to me, are going to have a conversation with this man. Now, whether Tom comes back, but those conversations are going to be had.
Yeah, just because you retire doesn't mean people can't reach out to you. So I think Tom is retired. It felt authentic to me. But, listen, Troy Aikman got phone calls. Drew Brees has gotten phone calls. That's the way the game is. Like when you retire and you're great, this, 3 to 4 teams every year get trapped. Every year.
Happens in training camp.
So, Yeah, I mean, it's like Tom's going to get calls. I think he's going to say no to all of them. But the Niners, because of the roster, you at least take the call, pour yourself a pint and sit and talk for 30 minutes and laugh. I mean, you have to take the call.
And last thing on Tom, one thing I found funny is a lot of people, the media critics and Twitter or whatever think, it's Greg Olsen has done a great job. And listen, he's good and he seems like a fantastic guy. But it's crazy that Tom Brady just gets to come in and take the job, no experience. The reality is there's a small percentage of people, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, if they want the number one gig, I don't care who it is, they're getting replaced. Unless it's John Madden, Tom Brady sitting in that seat, regardless who's there. It's just, there's a level of fame that Tom has amassed, I would say the last 5 or 6 years, taking him to another stratosphere, that it's just great, but Tom Brady's Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I stay out of those conversations. Greg is fantastic. And now Tom announced that Greg's going to do it again with Kevin Burkhardt.
Yeah.
Because I think Tom really, A, needs to exhale, and B, wants to figure out how to do this to be great at it. Yeah. So that'll be something that my bosses figure out. They don't include me in those conversations, right? So I don't know. I'm glad that I'm a broadcaster and I don't really have to do that, because the one thing Fox does a remarkable job at, they're really good at it, is production. When I worked at ESPN, there were tons of talented people, but I didn't think we were overly creative. ESPN's had that NBA pregame show for 20 years. I still don't think they ever get it perfectly right. Fox figured out soccer quickly. Took them about 2 years to figure out golf, their World Series coverage, their college football Big Ten, the show they did with Urban Meyer. From a production standpoint, Fox does TV really well. Everything feels big. And so Brady feels huge. So he's a natural choice for Fox. I don't know what they're going to do in a year. I just know, Tom signed on as the number one guy. Greg Olsen, and this doesn't surprise me at all, is amazing. I've known Greg for over 10 years. So I'm glad somebody else does that. But, I thought, today because I had thought about it. I thought, I'm going to ask Tom, dude, can't you just wouldn't you want to, you've been playing football for 40 years, probably 38. It's like, I'd want to take a big, long exhale. And he did.
I hadn't read the story, but I saw your take, and then I Googled it, the Tony Romo intervention. And I think one underrated part, I remember getting hired in the NFL and just thinking, I know football, and just realizing how many players were in the league, how many moving parts, how much is going on, how much work it takes, whether you're a coach, whether you're a GM, whether you call games, to follow the league. I mean, truly know it. Who is the fourth wide receiver on the Jags? And you saw Romo taking a lot of shit. Well, part of it, the amount of effort it takes to truly be all in football is very difficult. By far as the most amount of players, it has the most inventory every year of new guys coming in. Guys get cut all the time. Random guys, you can watch any game, whether it's the Niners or the worst team in the league, and they got a random dude that was in the XFL a year ago. It is time consuming. This is not the NBA where 7 people play.
Yeah, that's what I said about Romo, is that the league turns over every 3 years. Now, I joked about golf as an aside. I said, I think Tony wants to play on the tour.
Yeah, well, he does. He does.
He does.
He hits balls. A lot of people tagged me and said, John, I said, well, I found a way to monetize golf. Big difference.
Yeah. But
bring a revenue stream to the volume.
The people you do, golf is addictive. And I've known a lot of people that go down it, and they fall in love with golf and fall out of love with their job. The one thing with Tony Romo is that Tony's always had, even as a player, his style was sort of winging it. I mean, he winged it. That's what it always felt like.
Yeah.
So that's what he's like as a broadcaster. By the way, Peyton Manning was surgical in his preparation. Well, if you watch the Mannings on Monday night, Peyton Manning's got so much information. It's insane.
It's nuts. I know.
So you become Aikman, and Aikman's another guy, very prepared as a player, very prepared as a broadcaster. So I think you become what you were as a player. So Brady will be fantastic. And again, whatever happens. It's none of my business. But
work ethic is not the question with Tom.
Yeah, that's why when he said I want to take a year off, I think Tom he'll do a deep dive on everything, and I can't wait to hear him. I heard I forget who it was. You'll see a lot of people have predicted. Well, I don't know how he'll be. He's not a guy that fails a ton. No. Peyton Manning's not a guy that fails a ton. I mean, a classic example: Charles Barkley was known as a bad practice player, and he doesn't do a ton of prep on TNT. Now he's just naturally funny, and that's what comes off. But they joke that he doesn't follow a lot of the teams. Well, he wasn't a great practice player. He struggled with his weight. He wasn't really great in terms of nutrition and commitment. So that's what he is as a broadcaster. He just is so naturally funny and likable that he pulls it off.